Hey everyone, it's Adam here from Ads Productions, and this is the review of the Samsung Odyssey G7 1440p gaming monitor. This is the 32-inch edition. Just to point out, I have actually purchased this monitor with my own money, and I have no association to Samsung whatsoever. Technical specs. This is the model C32 G7 5T. The panel type is SVA Quantum Dot LED Edge Array. The screen size is 32 inches and the aspect ratio is 16:9. The curve radius is 1000mm. The maximum resolution and refresh rate is 2560 by 1440 at 240 Hz. FreeSync 60 to 240 Hz. It's G-Sync compatible. The response time is 1 millisecond. The maximum brightness is SDR 320 nits. HDR at 600 nits. The contrast is 2500 to 1. The panel thickness is 7.4 inches, roughly 188 millimeters. The bezel width is 0.4 inches around the top and sides, and at the bottom it's 0.9 inches. So that's around the top 9mm, along the bottom 23mm. And the overall weight of the whole device is 18.1 pounds or 8.2 kilograms. When you first open the box, you'll see the large power brick. It is actually on the larger side of things, so just bear that in mind when it comes to cable management and cable placement. Unless you are an unfortunate victim of theft, then you will also have the monitor itself. This is the main piece of the puzzle, and you'll see that it's protected by two large polystyrene bricks that hopefully mean it's not in pieces, other than the ones it's designed to be in. You're then provided with a couple of cables that help you get started, one HDMI and one DisplayPort. You also have the cable tidy clip, which will assist you in threading any unsightly cables up and out of the way. If you'd like to use this monitor with a VESA mount, VESA, however you pronounce that, then you're in luck here because there is a bracket provided to support this. Essentially, for those wondering, it's just a standard mount that you can use to put screens onto brackets so that you don't have to use the monitor stands. Obviously, there's no monitor arm mount included with this, but the VESA mount is there for you to use it with third-party stands if you want to. You often see these in business-type environments, or for those enthusiastic people who want to have one of those in your house. Most people aren't going to bother with this bracket because they're just going to use the monitor stands, and that's absolutely fine. You probably won't read the paperwork here, and you'll make the same mistake I did when trying to construct the monitor arm onto the back of the monitor, but hey, that's just how it goes. You've also got the jet engine style circular two-part connections that go over the back of the screen. You'll see what they're used for later on. Essentially, it goes near the RGB or the LEDs on the back and makes it look even cooler than it already does. And you also have the backplate, which is a fantastic piece of engineering. No, I'm kidding. It's damn awful. When you first open the box to this monitor, you'll be able to see immediately how big the stand is to this screen, which should give you a sign of things to come, and just a bit of warning that you're going to need some space. And that's pretty much all there is when it comes to this monitor in terms of what's in the box. So you have obviously the components, so the monitor stand, the feet, the screen itself, and a few mounts and brackets and accessories and manuals, all of the good stuff. Now let's talk a bit about the design. The first major thing that stands out here is the sheer prominence of the curve. If you are in search of a monitor that has just a bit of a minor curve, nothing too noticeable, that's as far as you want to go when it comes to a curve, then steer absolutely clear of this monitor. For the rest of us, and probably the large majority, the curve will come as no surprise, and although, to be honest, I was a bit skeptical at first when it came to the curve, thinking, okay, that might actually be too much of a curve for me to be comfortable with. However, I can tell you, looking at it right now as I do the voiceover to this video, it looks absolutely amazing. Yes, it is a little bit ridiculous, but ridiculous in a good way. I do find that the curve accompanies the incredible image quality of the panel incredibly well. The back of the monitor has a textured plastic finish, which does a great job at deflecting any potential fingerprints that you may have on this monitor. Although you shouldn't really be handling the back of the monitor all too much, but just know you're not going to get fingerprints there. No problem. When you have all the components ready to be assembled from the box, you can literally put the monitor stand against the backplate of the screen and it will slide and click into place, providing that you do it correctly. To be honest, I didn't read the instructions at the beginning and I didn't quite install it as you should. So there's one for all of you out there. Just read the manual, click it into place, and you're ready to use the screen. The monitor stand itself comes with a couple of holes to assist in cable management. All you need to do is slide up the plastic cover, place the cables through the holes, and then slide the cover down, and your cables, once they're through the holes and in the position, are covered by this cable trunk. It's a solid piece of equipment. It's not just a flimsy piece of plastic that's protecting the cables. It's a solid piece of material that slides down and keeps your cables safe and secure. This is one of those features you don't really think about needing until you actually have it. All the monitors I've ever used, I've never bothered with the cable management and sliding the cables left, right and centre. I've just plugged them in, let them dangle out the back of my desk and carried on. When you actually use it for the first time, it makes a massive difference, take it from me. The part that isn't so great, in fact, I'm not going to lie, it's actually quite awful. It's the flimsy, crappy plastic cover you get that shields the cables at the back. So you know you have your inputs, and then once you've done with your cable management, you can then rest the plastic plate on top of this, just so it gives it an all-round look. Well, the one included in this is just downright awful. I was very careful, because it was obviously a new piece of technology, to slowly adjust the back, clip it into place, but even then, one of the notches snapped off totally under the most minute piece of pressure. I did a bit of Googling and I wasn't the only one. This has happened to hundreds of people around the world who also own this monitor. So it's just a crap addition to an otherwise phenomenal monitor. It lets it down slightly, although let's be honest, what difference would it make if you don't even put the backplate on? You just keep it in your cupboard. You're not ever going to see it unless you look behind your monitor. And let's face it, with this curve, you can't really look behind it all too easily anyway. Just something to think about. The screen goes very close to the edges, but it's not quite a borderless design. It is very, very close to being one though. I have to say, when you're fully immersed in a game, the thin borders will come into their element. When you look straight on at the screen, there isn't a clear border, but it's definitely there. Long story short, it's not borderless, but the border is very subtle, just what you want with a screen of this size. This is in no way a thin screen, and it's not designed to be at all. When you look behind it, you'll see that it actually protrudes right out to the back of whatever desk you choose to put it on. So you're going to have to make sure you have a big surface area to put this screen. So what ports are actually included on the back of this thing? You have two DisplayPort 1.4 ports, you have a HDMI 2.0 port, two USB 3 ports, and an analog audio out 3.5mm port. It may have been nice to have some side-mounted USB ports, because going behind this monitor or underneath it can prove to be a bit tricky given the size and structure of it. I would have quite liked to have one or two on the side just for quick access to a mouse, keyboard or a USB drive instead of having to put it in your computer. Yeah, I know, a first world problem, especially when you have a screen of this quality. Just an additional extra that would have been nice to see. If you're one of the very few people that wants to put this monitor in some sort of portrait mode, that means basically flipping it on its head, you'll be glad to know you can do just that with this screen. It's a little odd if you want to do this, but it's definitely achievable. And I have to say, when I tried to do it, as you can see in this footage, it was quite tricky with the cables because the cables were quite tight and tense behind it. So when I turned the monitor, there was a bit of force on the cables and it did take a bit of shuffling and a bit of cable management tweaking to be able to move the monitor into a portrait mode. I'm not the biggest fan of this. I'm probably not ever going to use this monitor in portrait mode apart from to demo this in the video. But like many other things in this video, it's there if you need it. In terms of a menu system, the whole menu system to change all of the settings from brightness, sharpness, refresh rate, cycling between the different profiles is all controlled by a singular joystick style menu. Basically that means you press one mechanism and one button underneath the screen and you use that same button to select and move between the different menus. Honestly speaking, I think it works perfectly well. It's not a complex menu and it doesn't really need to be, although you can get to most places within the menu within 1 or 2 clicks. So if you imagine you have a screw in your hand, the head of the screw is about the same diameter as this button that you're going to be using. I'm normally a fan of a monitor having a couple of different buttons so that you press one for source, one for menu, one for left, one for right. It just gives you that bit more freedom. Let's say you run into issues with this button down the line a few years on. You have multiple buttons that do tend to be made of a slightly cheaper plastic. So I would have probably preferred to have 2 or 3 buttons, one that was a menu button and the other being directional keys, for example. I know I'm nitpicking here. I'm just suggesting for future improvements what I would have liked to see. I think this menu works fine. The fact that you can get to the main places like the refresh rate, the profiles, the resolution, the darkness and everything like that, literally within a couple of movements of the button, is very impressive and very functional. For those of you that are massive fans of RGBs and want to see everything light up all the time, LED lights everywhere, everything, all day, every day, the back of the monitor has RGB, the base of the monitor has RGB, and the menu system is where you would control this. You can probably tell throughout this video, these RGB lights are switched off for me. However, I have seen in low light this monitor be used by other people, and with LEDs going off, it does actually look pretty cool. So you can have like a neon light underneath the screen and turn the backlight off. It just makes the screen pop that bit more. Not like it needs it though, because this monitor's image quality is absolutely fantastic, but I'll get onto that very shortly. Alright, so how does this monitor actually perform on a day-to-day basis? So to give you some context, I actually upgraded to this screen after a slight accident while moving house. So I thought to myself, I need a 32-inch monitor with a 144 Hz refresh rate. I cannot say that word, refresh rate. And it also needs to be curved if possible, just so it's as similar to my old screen as possible. I have been playing a bit of Cyberpunk recently. What a game that is, bugs and all. It's very buggy, I'm not going to lie. Anyway, it was a great test for the graphical capability of this screen, because obviously it's the latest and greatest in game technology. I also have in my system a Zotac GeForce RTX 3080 just to try and pump as much of the power out of this screen as possible. Yes, maybe overkill, but hey, you got to treat yourself every once in a while. Moving swiftly on, so we have that there. I've been running through Cyberpunk and a series of other games, and so the main difference I found when I upgraded from my what was basically a mid-range 1440p 32-inch screen to this, which is basically the latest and greatest of 2K or 1440p technology, at this specific size that is, was that the darker colours are a lot more vibrant and make the other surrounding colours pop out. I cannot stress this enough. This really is an impressive screen, and it's very hard to try and describe to you what I see on it without using words like vibrant, colourful, exaggerated the colours pop out. The curve of the screen makes it feel like much more of an enclosed experience. It sounds like I'm talking like a marketer trying to sell you something, but it really is true. This is a fantastic monitor. When you use this screen with gaming and multimedia, you will be taking full advantage of the curve and the immersion that comes with it. And within a few minutes you will probably no longer notice that there is in fact a curve, because that's just how the eyes work and how it looks and takes in the information that is given. I have to say though, that when you're using this to do some general web browsing or just some tasks on the desktop outside of any heavy applications, you do actually notice that it is slightly stretched out. It is important to note that it is not actually stretched out, it's just how you perceive an image when applied on a curve. Obviously when you have a moving image or a game, that illusion is quickly moved away because you're distracted by the moving image. I have quite a few direct lights that are near the screen, and while other screens I've used in the past have reflected main lights and caused somewhat of a disruption in viewing, when I was testing this, I had a light directly above me and a light to the right of me, and I could barely see it in the reflection of the screen. This is a minor thing that's been thought about, and I appreciate that very much, because it definitely saves someone like me some hassle with light reflection. I'm going to finish off this video by giving you an overall summary of my thoughts and opinions on this screen. This is a high-end monitor in the 1440p 32-inch range. Samsung have recently released these to try and bring their technology up onto par with the likes of LG and AOC and Philips and a few other panels that aren't coming to mind at the moment, but you get the drift. The monitor's curve is the most extreme on any monitor I've seen, and this will be a deal breaker for many, many people. For me personally, the aggressiveness of the curve does not make a difference, coming from a curved monitor already, and to be honest, when I first moved to a curved monitor, it was an issue for maybe a week, and then I just got used to it, and now I don't look back. The fact that this is a VA panel, and it also includes an extreme curve, means that the viewing angles aren't going to be great. This isn't really a concern for me, and it won't really be a concern for you, because the chances are if you're buying a curved screen like this, you're not going to be sharing it at the same time with anyone. Or at least it's not designed to be used that way. The VA panel outputs a great native contrast, and a smart use of local dimming has been applied. The only real drawback here is that it relies on an edge backlight, which does the job, but it's not fantastic. It also has a pretty decent HDR color gamut. It seems to have top tier coverage of the widely used DCI P3 color space. I'm going to go on record here and say that this is the best screen of 32-inch, 2K, 240Hz that I've seen or used. Yes, there's probably better ones out there if you pay twice, 3 times the price, but wow, this monitor really did blow me away. Make sure you have plenty of space on your desk if you're considering picking up one of these, because it is a bit of a beast. It's not all sunshine and roses. Although the image quality is fantastic, everything I throw at it, it handles very well. The colours are extremely vibrant. Gameplay looks incredible, especially playing the games like Cyberpunk and Civilization and Counter-Strike, which is obviously making use of the faster refresh rate because of quick snapping movements. It just handles everything extremely well. I really don't have to say much about the 240Hz refresh rate, because it's just outstanding, to be honest. It's going to result in extremely fluid motion with whatever you want to do. As long as you have the right spec on your PC and the right frame rate settings and the right configuration, 240Hz is going to look, and does look, on this monitor, really good. Although, just bear in mind that if you're currently using a 144Hz monitor, the difference from 144Hz to 240Hz is great, and it's damn right noticeable, and obviously brings you to another level of performance. However, if you're going from 60 to 140, you're going to have a bigger difference when compared to 144 to 240. Just bear in mind. Honestly, I'm trying to think of a few things to say that's negative about the image quality. I just can't find them. But I cannot fault the image quality here. It's just really, really good. If you want a monitor that is going to hold its own in the latest AAA titles, as well as the latest and greatest first-person shooters, you can bump it up to 240Hz or 144Hz, whatever you want to use. Take full advantage of the snappiness that you're going to get with that. The curved screen is going to immerse you into your games and multimedia. You can adjust it, left, right, portrait, landscape. You can tilt it. It has an easy-to-use menu. There are inputs on the back, and plenty of them, so you're going to be able to use all of your latest components, your graphics cards, as well as other media or devices that you want to use with HDMI. Obviously, not everything is sunshine and roses with this though. Like I mentioned, the back panel is a piece of crap and should basically just be taken off and put in the cupboard, because it's just going to snap anyway with the lightest bit of force. That was a massive fail on Samsung's part with this monitor. That should be reinforced, because you're going to have tighter cables, which is naturally going to put a bit more force on the backplate, but that wasn't thought about. Oh well, it's not the end of the world. Also, it may have been an extra thing to have a speaker included, or just a mini speaker included in this monitor for, let's say, troubleshooting purposes, because obviously the only times you really want to use a monitor speaker is when you want to have a replacement while your main speakers are getting fixed or you're buying new ones. It's a nice to have, not a must have. I also really like the fact that there's been some time and effort put into the mechanism for managing the cable management. The arm and the cover that's used to cover the cables going down the tracks isn't a flimsy piece of plastic. It's solidly built. It does the trick. It makes the screen look even better because the cables are tucked away. It doesn't feel like it's going to snap off in your hand. It works. It's really good. Obviously, I have not been able to get in front of all the monitors in the world, but from what I've seen and what I've used in a series of different scenarios, whether it's multimedia, gaming, video editing, it's just a fantastic screen. Strong, sharp image quality, easy to use menus, and Samsung have really just pulled out all of the stops to try and make a monitor that holds its own with the best in class, and I really think they've achieved that. If you have any doubts about whether or not to go with a Samsung Odyssey G7 monitor, don't doubt it, just go for it. It's a bit sharp in price, but what you get in terms of quality more than makes up for it. I have been looking at other people's reviews and opinions around the world, and this monitor really does look to be one of the best 32-inch 1440p monitors available on the market today. If you have any questions about this monitor or just want to say it's amazing or you didn't like it, that's fine too. Please leave them as a comment below. This has been Adam from Ads Productions with the review of the Samsung Odyssey G7 32-inch 2K 1440p, whatever you want to call it, monitor. Thanks for watching.